hope that you got to listen to part one of the episode that I just did with my daughter-in-law, Hannah Corwin, because we are going into part two. There was so much good stuff about how God just gets in there and how he works on our hearts when we allow him to, and the gifts and talents that we have and how we can really truly end up using them for him in only a way that a but God story can do. I hope that if you haven't listened to part one, that you'll hop back over and listen to it before you listen to part two. Now, in this part two, we are going to be talking to Hannah again. And just a reminder is that Hannah is from London, England. She is a high-end portrait photographer, and she traveled the world with all of the best brands, Gucci, Chanel. She was just traveling all over doing the thing. She was living the dream. And God got a hold of her heart right in the middle of it. And he had some work to do, some pruning to do. We talked about that in part one. Now in part two, we're going to see how this applies to us as women and human beings that God has literally placed on the earth with gifts and talents and purposes to bring his glory and his goodness to the earth. And you're going to find out exactly what God had in store for Hannah. It happens to be an amazing book, a coffee table book at that has "But God" written across the top. Because without God, none of the things inside of that book would have happened. And I'm just super excited to share this with you. And I think it will touch your heart. So let's get back to my conversation with Hannah.
Welcome to the Moms Like Us podcast, where moms just like you learn strategies, systems, and skills through expert interviews and real-life insight designed to take your marriage, mothering, and home to the expert level. Hi, I'm Hannah Corwin, your mom mentor and host, author, international speaker, and the founder of the Moms Like Us Academy. I've been coaching moms for over 25 years, and I have some really good news for you. Motherhood isn't a natural talent. It's a skill, and you can learn it. You can crush it at motherhood instead of motherhood crushing you. So let's get to today's show.
And I think what's really important as well is it's so easy to see the familiar and not think, well, this is something like I don't think I looking back now, I don't think I understood the weight of the call that was on my life and what God was leading me to, because it was familiar. I was shooting every day. I was doing meetings, all these things. And I think, when you're a mother, although I'm not one yet, it's one of the weightiest, most important callings. So what I would say is every day, what can feel like familiar is actually the weightiest and most important call. And never look at it and think it is like a thing, because it's actually the 50 loads of laundry, the tantrums on the floor, the getting up again and doing the same routine and teaching the kids. You're sowing foundations that go so deep, and what can seem like the familiar is actually just the biggest call and the most important one in your life. So I think it's, I have lots of friends who have children, and I see the stewardship, and I'm so blessed, because when we do walk into that season, we're so rich in community of mums and friends and kids, and we're really blessed just to see the stewardship of, people around us. They really are like, this is a weighty call and a weighty mantle. So
that's so true.
Throw that in.
Okay, so let's talk about a statement that I've heard you say on and off. You said, I even after that, God still was working, and that you were doing cool things
for God,
Mm-hmm.
but he took you to do cool things with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this. I think this applies to everybody. I think it's one of the greatest things I've heard you say. And I've heard you say a lot because we talk. Talk to me about that and when you realize that.
There's a few encounters that I've had where I've just had like revelation of what God is doing through my ministry. Like, I never call it my job anymore because it's really important that I look at it of like, I'm never just taking a photo of someone. It's actually a really weighty mantle for me because I'm actually capturing God's creativity in the way he's, created you. Like, he's entrusted me to capture you. So now I have to ask the Lord, like, how do you see Mona? Like, what is it that brings your heart alight when you think about Mona? And I'll ask, every shoot, what do you want to say, God? How do you want to reveal her? Like, what parts of her should I focus on? So I will always start with that with any shoot. And if I'm treating the shoots, if I'm putting the visuals together, creatively leading the shoot, I just ask and I look for references and I find ideas of, oh, okay, this is what you're saying. Sometimes he'll give me a scripture. Sometimes it will just be moments on set where it's like they've had a hard day, like, or there's insecurity there and someone needs extra encouragement and they need to be made to feel comfortable. And a lot of that is me making fun of myself and actually diminishing myself to elevate the person that I'm photographing. So a lot of the time I just sit and wait and see what God says and what he does. But I get to partner with heaven. And that's something that I never take lightly. There are days where I'm like, it can, again, like I was saying earlier, it could be very easy to feel familiar, but there's like 7 billion people on planet Earth. So there's 7 billion facets of God's creativity and not one person's the same. Even if you're twins, whatever. So you have to think about that and you're like, that's mind-blowing. On top of that, not one person's fingerprint is the same because every woman's womb lining is different, which is where your fingerprint is formed, which is even that, in the creativity of that is crazy to me that God has thought every detail through. So I've had a few moments on set where I will just ask God to come or invite his presence. Like, I will never I never want, because I work with a lot of artists that aren't Christians, I always want them to feel comfortable. So I'm never going to be like, all right, guys, let's hold hands and invite him in.
Get all weird.
But, and I'll just pray in tongues and take authority over the studio or just invite him in before anyone gets there. And it's really fun. It's really fun. And I remember a shoot about 4 years ago for an album for an artist here. And I actually decided just to clear the room because there was so many people. It wasn't chaotic, but we'd had a busy day. We'd done a few looks and I was just like ready we just cleared the room. And I just wanted to create this like timeless portrait that the artist could look back and just see this moment and remember. And that was the key word, remembrance. And we sat there and I cleared the room. And usually I turn my laptop away from the artist so they can't see, because some people can get in their head sometimes, see the photo and be like, oh, look at this. So I always turn it away. But for some reason I hadn't. So she could see everything. And I was just like, turn your head this way or lift your chin and do this. And I just said to her, I was like, I just want you to think and just remember in this moment all that God has done. And I just want you to think about that. We had worship music on, and as she was remembering, she saw on the screen a scar that she has from where her cancer was removed that was pressing on her vocal cord. And she started to weep, not a heavy weep, but just tears were just streaming down her face. And I captured it. And it was one of these moments where we had this moment, me and her. I had this moment with God. She's having this moment with God. And I just sat there, and honestly, it's one of the most special portraits I've ever taken. Probably my favorite.
I know this picture, and now I'm getting all because I know too. Because it's a beautiful photograph.
Yeah, and it's lit beautifully. It's just everything about it. I look at it and I'm like, but what it says to me is a woman who remembers what God has done, that he took her from here to here and actually made her voice even stronger. And every time I look at it, it just blows me away, not because of what I've done or how I create, but what God has done in this woman's life.
Yeah, it's this is the but God story for everybody. That allowing and inviting him in to do a holy work, and to go deep with the roots as he dismantles all of the things that he doesn't want in our lives, and he wants to replace. Sometimes we have things in our lives and he can't replace it because it has to be removed. Like you can't be kind and unkind at the same time, at the same moment. He wants to dismantle so he can replace. And when we get to the point, and I think this is where you're describing it, that cool things and good things and even gifted things can still become even deeper and become holy things. And when we start seeing our work that we do for God, we see our work doing with God for a holy outcome, everything changes. Everything changes.
Yeah.
And for you, now he's gonna wake you up and say, it's time to do the book. Let's talk about the book.
Oh, you have it right there?
No. Oh, yeah, I do. Where's my book? Sorry, no.
You were grabbing it then.
I was grabbing it, but it wasn't there where I could see it. This is the book.
There it is.
There it is. It's called But God. It is beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. And it is like, can't even. And the stories will literally encourage you and blow you away. And it's just not all like, we all love Courtney's story of how her little boy came back to life after he died in her arms. I mean, those are great stories, but there's also stories of regular people, because God, just like he told Hannah, from the faceless to the famous, from the rich to the poor, no one is exempt from my love. Nobody. And that includes moms in houses. And I want you to get this book. But Hannah, tell us more about the book. When he woke you up and gave you a charge that was a little bit bigger, you were great with the holy work, but you were like, what?
So we had that moment in Africa. That was 2013, 2012. Yeah. So it's nearly 10, 11 years ago. And we, all have a process and things that we need to work on. And for me, I had to do a lot of hard work. So I knew this wasn't going to be well, God told me, so I've got to go do it. It was actually like I had to get in the trenches with God and really get out some gunk, because I think I can take all the beautiful pictures, but if my heart isn't in a line with the will of God and the stewardship and the integrity isn't there, then that's stuff that needs to be worked on. And it wasn't. And I knew that if I put out this book 10 years ago, it could have been really problematic. And I needed to do some heart surgery. So worked on a lot of things, and God's just so kind the way he does things. And
so kind. Why are we so afraid?
I know.
Why are we so afraid?
Because we try to self-protect and do all the things, and God's just, let me do this, will you?
It's gonna be all right.
Yeah. So 2020, where are we? 2021. 2000, I can't even think straight today. So 2021, I'm asleep and I feel the Lord tell me, like, it's time to do this thing that I put in your heart. And I remember just all the fear, all the things rises up. I can't do this. I'm not qualified, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, with God, like, all things are possible. So he just like immediately was like, all right, well, you need this, I'm going to give you this. If you need that, and we just saw all these amazing things happen. And we started working on, the production side of things and the planning side of things. And we just started shooting everything in last April 2022. And we took a week in April and shot a majority of the stories, sat down, did interviews, written testimonies, did all the things that you see in the book. And we had styling, hair and makeup, amazing team of people who were just interceding and praying into their areas of what they were doing for the book. And then from that, we went to Africa and we actually found portraits. We captured the people that I'd met 10 years before, which isn't in the book, but we were able to release some of that at the exhibition, which was just amazing that we were able to meet these people and honor these people because of what they've done in my life. So in this book, you will see stories, as you say, some radical healing, radical testimonies, but also simple testimonies, because God cares about the big and the small. Like, I am still blown away, when I hear a story of like, God restored this, or God did, and it's the simple things, because he wants to do a wonder. Like, he wants to do the big and the small. It's like, he's a wonder working God. So he's not just like, all right, well, I'm only going to heal and I'm only going to provide this. And I'm like
you're almost desperate enough for me to do something. Almost.
I love you. Exactly. He's like, I love you. I want you to be happy and I want you. But a lot of that is us stepping in faith and us believing for the miraculous and us. And I think when you see there's a couple of threads you'll see in the book of the obedience of the people in the book and the willingness to believe and not doubt, and just with the obedience, there's blessing. So when I look at the stories, it really blows me away, because there's just such obedience and humility of like, I'm going to believe for this and I'm going to contend for this. And I don't know the outcome, but I'm going to believe until the outcome. And that still blows me away. And it blows me away that I got to capture these people. And I'm just forever grateful that I got to be a part of this book. And because it is evidence, it's evidence of the goodness of God. When you turn pages and you see stories of just lives that have been restored, you can't you can't question it. You can't question God. You just look and you're like, I don't understand. And there were moments for me through this project that I would think that I had an understanding of, yeah, God's good. Like, I've seen the goodness of God in my own life. Like, I know he's good. Like, I've seen transformation. I've seen miracles. I've seen healing. I've seen people get set free. I've seen these amazing things around me. I know it. But there were moments where, oh, I have no idea, because I would hear a story and then I would sit down and hear another story and then another one. And I'd be like, oh, you're really good. Wow. You're good. You're really good. And he just kept getting gooder and gooder. That's a real
Gooder
word.
and gooder.
And I
Shows
was
off sometimes.
so there were just moments where I was absolutely ruined, because I would just sit and cry. And, you know, I'd heard these stories 3 or 4 times, because I met with everybody in the book pretty much who I didn't know. And I really sat down and, you know, I'd spend 2-3 hours in a coffee shop just hearing stories of what happened. Like, hang on, this happened to you? So, and then I would hear it again. Oh, we must have, because we proofed everything. We've watched videos, we've watched liners, we've written stuff, like, and it still blows me away. Like, you know, the stories in this book, it really does. So I'm just grateful that
I love that, again, going back to your story, is that God used your gift to, and then he sowed in you this kindness and this ability to see his goodness, so that the true gift would come out of your gift, the gift of his goodness. Does that even make sense? It makes a lot of sense in my little heart. And I think that that's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Like when I teach on masculinity and femininity and manhood, biblical manhood and womanhood, that's why we got to do it that way. Like, it's got to be his goodness, his traits coming through the creation of the individual person.
Yeah.
And gender's one of the ways that he does that. And I'm just amazed at how good he is to do that. But I also keep remembering our stubborn, free-willed, sinful, selfish Romans 1 ability to say, no, me do it myself. And I think it's books like this and stories like this where we see when people say, you know what, I kind of am at the end of myself and I would like you to do it. And this surrendering of, I'm going to trust you, even if it isn't better. I'm going to trust your goodness, even if it doesn't change.
Yeah.
Even if my baby dies, even if, you know,
yeah,
I'm going to see you as the goodness of God.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a story that's in this book that may not stick out right away, is that when we surrender our me do it myself, and we say, I'm kind of at the end of myself. I don't want to work for you. I don't even want to work for me. I want to work with you to get through this, to get to the other side of it, even if could be the backside of that God, even if, no matter what.
And I think as well, it's very easy to think, well, like, okay, but is God still good if I don't see this miracle? And it's like, well, okay, you know, me and Max are believing for something right now where we're like, okay, well, God's still good, irrespective of whether we don't see the miracle or not. Like, we are absolutely standing and believing for that miracle. but we're not going to question his goodness or his capability, because he's God and he can, and he's proven to me that he can time and time again. But sometimes we can make the miracle the idol of like, we have to see it. And actually just being content in where we are right now of like, God, you took me from this to that. Like, you've brought me from this to there. Like, I'm good. Like, even if you never do a thing for me ever again, you've done more than enough for me on that cross. So who am I to sit here and go, like, I'm good. Yeah, it would be nice. It would be amazing to see this miracle, and I'm fully believing that we will, but he's still good. Like, I still wake up every day thankful for my husband and thankful for my house, and that I have a job and finances and provision and protection and all these amazing things, because he loves me that much. Like, and he's still good.
And he's not done.
No,
He's not done. He's still kind of adding in and working through.
Yeah.
You know, he writes a beautiful story.
Yeah.
He writes a beautiful story. And I thank you, sweetie, for being with. I kept you really long, and I appreciate.
Oh, I could talk to you all day. We all know this.
We do that. We do that. Well, I'll be there on Friday. We'll get started.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that you said yes to God, and you did it with this book. It is. This isn't just a little paperback. This is the kind of book and that you have on. Look at that photograph. Like, look at that. Makes stories really good.
Yeah. She has
and when you capture people, like you capture them. Okay, like Bob and Linda. Please. That is just amazing. What a photograph. But the stories, to have this on a coffee table in an office, anytime that you have someone that doesn't know the Lord, this is the kind of gift that just allows the Holy Spirit to speak through the photographs and through the stories. And so I'm really proud of you. I can't tell you. I mean, I tell you all the time, but anyways, I love you. And moms, we're going to wrap this up. And now that Hannah's off the screen, I'm just going to encourage you as moms. I hope that you see that from the famous to the faceless. You know, we live in a society where famous is like everybody wants that. But what you do isn't just a small thing. It is a holy thing. And as you are doing it, I want you to be able to grab a hold of that. God didn't give those babies to just anybody. He gave them to you, honey. And you are the one that he knew would be perfect for but God moments in their lives and in yours. And your surrender to allow him to mold you when you get overly frustrated, when you yell too much, when you're a little snippier than you should be to your husband, to allow God to take those places inside of your heart and learn to love your husband and your children like he does. And that's something that takes some practice. So don't be hard on yourself when you're frustrated and everything. You can go to God and he will be your but God story, and allow him. Say, yes, I will do what you've asked me to do, even if. But God, I don't want to do it on my own. I want to do it with you. And when you do it with God, it's a great but God story, and it's a beautiful story. So just like I say every week, moms like us, we do things like this. This is what we do. We raise children that love the Lord. We open our hearts to be more like him. To the most important thing on the earth to God is people, and little people at that. And we love our men well, and we make our homes as much like heaven on earth as we can. That's what moms like us do.
And you know what? I want you to be there the next time we get together and talk about moms like us do things like this. Bye for now. I sure hope you enjoyed this episode of Moms Like Us Do Things Like This. Sweetheart, we have so much more over on the website Moms Like Us, and we also are on Instagram at Moms Like Us __, and you can just join us over there to learn why we should know what we should know, what we should know. But I have got a little special thing that we have in the Moms Like Us world. It's called the Moms Like Us Academy, and I hope you'll consider it. You can find out more about it on the momslikeus.org website, but it is full of masterclasses that teach you how. Because, girl, motherhood isn't a natural talent. It's a skill, and you can learn it. But to learn it, you have to know how. And that's where we do it. That's where moms just like us, moms just like you, we make it happen. So I hope that you will go over and join us in the Moms Like Us Academy. Okay, that's it. Bye for now.